A lot of us think in black and white: success or failure, strong or weak, hustle or quit. But what if the real growth happens in the gray? Welcome back to the Trailblazer Pod. I'm your host, Faye, and each week I bring you stories of Jewish women paving bold paths. Today I'm joined by Riki Zahn, founder of After Hours Club, a mental health focused art and wellness community. We talk about grief, burnout, and post-grad depression. This is a conversation about vulnerability, art as healing, and learning to live and build beyond black and white thinking. Let's dive in. Riki, welcome to the Trailblazer Pod. Thank you so much for being here. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Good. I know you started sharing a lot more about yourself, but I think there's a lot
Mhm.
that people are gonna find out and learn about you that
Yeah.
potentially you haven't.
Yeah, I think only recently have I
Yeah.
really dove into being vulnerable. I recently got interviewed by someone else and I realized like I really don't share that much about myself.
Yeah.
I very much like break the surface, so this will be interesting.
Perfect timing then. So we're gonna start from the very beginning. Let's go back all the way to when Riki was a little girl. Let's take five, six, seven. What were you like from what you remember or from what you're told?
I no, it's a good question. I was definitely like a very quirky, out of the box
Mm,
kid, very like fun loving, outgoing. Definitely always, a bit different. Very like I think everyone would always say like always had a smile on my face.
oh.
I would say weird, but in like the best way,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the youngest in my family, so
Oh.
I was always like the one they made like run around the house 100 times because I
Okay.
probably had diagnosed ADHD.
Yeah.
But yeah, like very hyperactive, very like fun, a little, I
Yeah.
don't want to say artsy, but like out of the box is
Mm-hmm.
like how I would describe myself.
Yeah. Do you, I just back to my question, do you remember this or were you told that you were different? Because I think sometimes, we feel that
Yeah.
very much like we don't make the same type of friends or don't make as many friends. And sometimes it's just like, I remember my childhood being like pretty like normal. And then adults are telling me that that's what they noticed in me. So I'm curious which one it is.
So funny because it's very hard to remember
Mm-hmm.
what it is actually. It's a good point. Like what's actually your memories and what people
Yeah.
have told you. So I
Yeah.
think that's actually something that I
Mm.
remember and people will tell me otherwise. And I
Oh.
think yeah, and I think the like very like happy, fun-loving kid
Mm.
is what I've been told and like kind of remember. But I remember kind of feeling like a bit out of the box and like never really feeling like I fit in as a
That
kid
is
or even in
so
like adult.
interesting.
Yeah, because it
Wow.
like really went into my adulthood. So I feel like I've like
Mm-hmm.
always kind of felt like that and still feel like that at times.
I'm so
So
happy I asked that question because I think that's such a profound point. When you say now in adulthood, like how does it manifest now? Does it lend to you like with your social circle, or is it more just like this internal feeling that you walk around with?
I think that, I have amazing friends, an amazing family, and a great support system, but I do think it's an internal thing. I think
Mm,
it has to do with maybe social anxiety or just feeling like you go through life just finding who you are and finding a sense of
yeah.
self. And I think when you're younger, you haven't found that yet. And I just never was someone who fit into that cookie cutter mold. And like
Yeah.
my mom has said that too. And when you're young, you want to be exactly like
Yes.
everyone else. And
Yes.
when you're not like everyone else, that's weird. But when
Yeah.
you're an adult, you realize that's really cool,
It's a
right? Now
superpower.
everyone it's a superpower. And now
Yeah.
everyone's trying to be different and
Yes.
eclectic, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not cool when you're young. And it's
Right.
really, really scary as a kid.
Yeah.
And now as an adult, I'm still like that. So you're still going to have that feeling of
Hmm.
not really fitting in because you still kind of want to be like basic and
Right.
boring at times. Like it makes things a little more complicated socially,
Yes.
but it makes it more interesting, right? So I'm
Right.
still like that to my core. You're always going to be like your inner small
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
But I was always like that. Like my mom
Wow.
always says, like I always beat to my own drum. I always did what I want. So
So cool now.
it's
So cool to think about it now. Yeah.
it's so cool because now you see people like trying to be cool and
Yeah.
different, like that's in like the cool girl
Yeah.
aesthetic, and it's like, but you're not like that, and you don't know what it's like to be like that as a kid.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard.
I
It's hard to
totally
be,
get it.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I relate to the part of feeling that, and not in the same way as you. Mine came out in a different way where I was like
my mom says, always had 100 friends around me, but I never felt like they were thinking about the things I was thinking about. I always felt like I was dealing with questions that a 6-year-old should not deal with. And I felt in my own brain like a weirdo. But it was
Yep.
never ever portrayed in, real life. It was just this thing in my head. So I relate to like that internal. But I don't have that so much as an adult. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, listen, I've always had friends. Like I've never
Yeah.
felt like I haven't. I've struggled with
Mm,
relationships, which is I think is a different thing, but I've always had friends and I've
yeah.
always like it's but feeling like you fit in and
Mm-hmm.
having friends, I think are two different
Yes,
things.
exactly.
Because I think I grew up in an area where I was just different than everyone else. I was
Mm-hmm.
raised different than what the setting I was put in, and
Interesting.
I was just out of the box no matter
Yeah.
what way you put it. And like
Yeah.
again, now I think it's so cool and
Yeah.
I appreciate my upbringing so much and I think it made me who I am, but doesn't change the fact that that's the
Right.
kind of kid I was, right? So,
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So when you were like, let's take high school years, like what were you envisioning career-wise, if you were even thinking about that thing? I always ask the question and I'm like, wait, some people don't think about their career at 18. Like, what
No.
was, no?
No. I did not care about school at all.
Okay.
I was not a great student. I was, which I feel like if you speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, you'll get the same answer.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
I'm not book smart. If I studied, I would do well on the test. I just
Mm-hmm.
never cared. Never
Yeah.
cared about school, never thought about my future, and I really just didn't know. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. The thought of the future very much scared me.
Mm.
And I kind of wish someone sat me down and like asked
Interesting.
me what I wanted, but it wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, high school me wasn't thinking that. I was going through a lot during those days. I was like a hormonal teenager
Yeah.
and I was struggling. I had lost my father when I was 11 and
Oh,
that hit me when I was in high school. It didn't hit me when I was 11.
that's
So
so
high school
interesting.
me was not
Right.
thinking about my future. I was like thinking about everything.
Wow.
So I think that that very much set me to the trajectory where I am now, but I didn't know that then, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I always start from the beginning because I think most of the time it shows us like how you got to where you are today. And if someone just met
Mhm.
you today, they wouldn't understand the journey. But I think it's a really cool way to basically share your career now. But I'm curious, I did not plan on asking this, I didn't know, but like why do you think you processed the loss of your dad in high school? Was it just you understood more what loss means?
Yeah, listen, like grief, I never want to be like the spokesperson for grief or someone who speaks on grief. I'm not a professional, but I think anyone knows like it comes in all forms and there's like
Mm-hmm.
levels to it, right? There's 5 stages of grief. And like an
Yeah,
11-year-old doesn't understand grief,
yeah.
right? So I when I was 11, I was like, "Oh, I don't want anyone to look at me differently," right? It goes back
Mm,
to like the cookie cutter,
right.
everyone around me is the same. And as an 11-year-old, you don't want to be looked at differently. Like you don't want
Right.
to be the kid whose parent died. And so
Yeah.
I went back to school and I was like, I'm fine. And I like went back to school
Wow.
with a smile on my face. And I look at that little girl and I'm like, wow, she was so strong. I wish I could be
Mm,
like her. But I also look at that little girl and I want to give her a hug because
mm,
she was so scared to express any emotion, right?
yeah.
Because that was like a weakness. And
Wow.
it was and I think that that's something I've only worked on in the last like few
Mm,
years. Like I used to think expressing any sort of like negative emotion was a form of weakness.
yeah, I relate.
So, right? It's
Hmm, yeah.
something that we're kind of it's ingrained
Yeah.
in us from the older generation. So I think that it didn't hit me till I was a teenager because that's like
Mm.
when your hormones are like
You have no
raging,
control.
no
Yeah.
control. I was crazy in high school, you know.
Yeah.
I was like manic. I had no idea what I was doing because I didn't process it. And that's what
Right.
happens. If you don't process something, it's not going to just
Yeah.
go away. It's just going to hit you later on. And I don't even
Yeah.
think it only hit me then. I think it hit me until I started to heal,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I
So,
think again, like we're going to talk a lot about mental health and what that looks like and grief plays an intricate role in that for some people, right? It can really like spiral if you don't take care of it and you don't try to heal. So I think again, it's interesting. I didn't even know these pieces of the puzzle, but it's all making sense.
Yeah.
Um, so when you're saying, okay, you're not thinking about your career, you're not thinking about your future, how did you end up studying like art studio? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah. Well, that was on my mom, to be honest.
Ah,
My
okay.
Me and my mom were very different. She's like
Okay.
type A, an accountant,
Mm.
great,
Wow.
it's good
Yeah.
to have her. All the people in my life were like structured than me. And I think she saw that that would be good for me.
Mm.
I always had a creative element to me, but I never thought I would study art in a way. But again, I never really thought of it. My dad was an artist, he was a designer, and I think I was very
Oh,
similar to him in those ways. And I guess she thought it would be a good major for me. And it was really good. Again, I wasn't good at expressing myself. I wasn't good at communicating. And for me, that was a form of expressing
right.
feeling and getting it out, which I think
Right.
is a way for most people is they do it through, let's say,
Mm.
creativity or through an outlet like
Yeah.
wellness, on a run or things like that. So for me, that was amazing. And
Wow.
I got a whole degree out of it at the
Yeah.
same time.
Sometimes moms know best. Like we hate to admit it, but sometimes they know best. When we talked initially briefly, you mentioned, like you were this creative type, you studied art studio, and somehow you ended up in finance. And so
Yeah.
can you talk to me about, I wanted to understand first of all how, and also like how you felt during that time when you're doing something that's, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, not really aligned with who you are as a person, like how that affected you and your emotional well-being.
Yeah. So I graduated, got this degree in studio art, and listen, like I always call it like post-grad depression. I think that your whole life is kind of set up for you. You go through school and then you go to college and like it's just there's like an order in which you're told and like you kind of don't have to
Yeah.
do anything because you're just told like I go to school, I go to college and then it's
Yeah.
it. But then no one like kind of sets you up for what happens after
Right.
unless you get a degree that's like okay, I get a degree in accounting and then I'm going to be an accountant. So it's
Right.
like you graduate and you're like what now?
Right.
Like now I have to figure out my life and that's really
Yeah.
scary for a 20, 21 year old, however old you are when you graduate and you're just not ready.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you have to make money and support yourself.
Yeah.
Like what? How did this
Yeah.
happen? So I think that I got a degree in art and I was like what what am I supposed to do with that?
Right.
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 And
Yeah.
reality set in. I again was never someone to think about my future. And I think that when people don't know what to do, their first reaction is, oh, I'll just go back to school, which is
Mm-hmm.
like another feeling of,
I did
being
that.
lost.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
And
easy.
no, it's easy, but I think it does work for some people. But I'm not a school person. So I
Right.
think for a while I was like, I'm just going to get a master's or I'll get an MFA. But then it's like, okay, then I'll just have another art degree. And what do I do
Mm-hmm.
with that? Being a creative is so broad. There's so many things you could do as a creative. And I always knew I wanted to be a creative, but I really just didn't know what that was. And then it was COVID and I couldn't get a job. I
Yeah.
graduated and I at first said I was going to take that year to find a job and then maybe go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit and like I literally could not get a job in the creative fields. No one was hiring. If
Yeah.
anything, they were like the business everything was going out of business
Yeah.
and I got this opportunity to work at this startup. I took it and it was honestly, it gave me everything I needed at the time. I was able to support myself. I was able to get an apartment, to be
Yeah.
self-sufficient. I was able to travel. And at first I loved it because at that time I wanted to be independent and I wanted to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got comfortable and being comfortable is
Mm.
never good. And I felt really lost because I lost the part of myself that I wanted, which was the creative side of myself. So I think that was part of that journey is like I ended up there
Yeah.
because I had no choice. And then I ended up feeling very lost and not knowing what to do. Because once you're there and you're making money, but
Yeah.
you don't you don't know where to go, it's hard.
It's harder than just not having a job because it's like how do I give up stability for this like yearning that I
Yeah.
have, right? It's like almost the illogical thing to do, but you're just not comfortable or you're not settled in whatever you're doing enough to just breathe easy. Like I'm just saying I know the feeling. So it's like you're being pulled in two different directions. You're like stability versus like every day looking different or that kind of thing, right? I think
Yeah.
everything you're saying up until now, and we still have a way to go, is nothing is black and white. Like you're saying, little girl, like you want to be different, but you also want to be the same. You lost your dad, but like you want to fit in. Like everything has almost like two to three sides of the coin, and you can look at it from all different perspectives. It's really interesting for me as listening to people's stories. Like I used to be such a black and white person, and listening to people talk about their journeys has like really helped me understand the world in a different way. And so I'm basically just saying thank you for sharing, because I think it gives a lot of perspective
Of
to
course.
me and to listeners who are maybe just stuck in thinking one way about their lives or their loved ones and something like that, you know?
Yeah. Well, I always say like you should try to, not take everything people do so seriously, or, try to meet people where they're at, because people can only meet you as much as they can meet themselves,
Right.
right? So like in
Yeah.
terms of black and white thinking, it's like
Yeah.
if someone like spoke to you a certain way, or someone's not like giving you what you need, like in like black and white thinking, like it's probably they're probably going through something, or that person, like everyone is going through their own thing. So I try
Yeah.
not to take those things so seriously, because if you haven't done anything to them, like try to,
Right.
give everyone, the benefit of the doubt, try to give everyone grace, try to meet everyone with compassion, because like at the end of the day, you just like never know what anyone's going
Right.
through.
Such a good perspective. You took what I said and you just like wrapped it with a bow. So I want to talk to you about mental health and After Hours Club, and I want to understand the timeline there. Did you have the idea for After Hours Club, and then you like where was the passion first and then the business? Was the business first and then the passion for like how did it work?
No, it was such an accident. Like
Oh.
I didn't realize what I was creating. I had this concept, and within like 48 hours, I had an event on the calendar, and I
Wow.
was so excited.
That's wild.
And I think that's really beautiful. I think when you're building something, there's this real excitement that comes with it. And I
Yeah.
see it with people who are first starting to build something. It's a really cool feeling when you find it, when you find that
Yeah.
thing that you're passionate about. I never thought I'd have that ever. I never saw myself like building my own thing. I never
Yeah.
saw myself as a founder. It's just like I didn't see my
It wasn't in
personality
the
as that.
cards. Yeah.
Wasn't in the cards, but I created this from things that I had gone through, and it's literally me. It's all aspects of my life, and I didn't realize what I was building. I would explain it to someone at first, I would need someone to sit in front of me for like 40 minutes, and I'd be like, "Don't talk for the next 40 minutes. I have this concept," and I like couldn't form it into a complete sentence.
Mm.
And I would say I had that first event. It was probably all people I knew. I wouldn't tell them what they were showing up to. I was so vague and like mysterious about it. After the first one, I had a second event on the calendar like a month later, and then the third one. And after that, I feel like imposter syndromes kind of start
Mm.
to, you know, come to play. And I realized, wow, I think I'm building something. And then it was only
Mm.
like 6 months later where I realized, oh, I started a business, which
Wow.
is really backwards. And I always tell
It's
people, do not do
backwards.
don't do this, like have a
Yeah.
business plan, do it right. But it was accidental. I didn't realize I was doing
Right.
it. So it's not like I could go back and change anything because it was so beautiful. But
That's so cool.
yeah,
Do you think you would have, let's just flip the script. Do you think you would have done it if you had the idea? Sometimes when you think about it too much, you get scared and you don't do it.
that's a really great point, because when people always ask me, how do you know, like I have this idea, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if I should do it. And I said, that's your
Mm-hmm.
first problem, because you're thinking too much.
Yes.
Fear is like, I agree with you, because I think fear is the only thing standing in people's
Mm-hmm.
way. And the only reason I do it and continue to do it is because I'm a risk taker, which is a good
Mm.
thing and a bad thing.
In business, it's a good thing, I think.
I think all founders are a little crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Need that
like
adrenaline
I heard
rush,
the
you know?
founder of Crown Affair said that as well. It's like we're all just like a little
A little.
crazy. It's like you
Yeah.
have to be a bit of a risk taker
Yeah.
to do what we're doing, because if you think too hard into anything, you won't do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah. You can
Um,
talk yourself out of anything, right?
right? You're your
Yeah.
biggest cheerleader, but you're also like your biggest hater in life. So
Yes, definitely. Okay, so talk to me a little bit just for people who don't know. What's your like elevator pitch for After Hours Club? Like, what is After Hours Club?
Yeah, so we're a mental health focused art and wellness company and community. Our goal and our mission is to create safe spaces for people to decompress and de-stress through art. So art is not the end goal, but it's about expressing any emotion that you may be feeling, anything, without judgment through that creativity. So kind of like art therapy, but it's not. But making it easily accessible to people because like no one's gonna go out and seek art therapy on like a regular Wednesday
Yeah.
night. So we do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that by popping up all over the city, whether that's
Yeah.
at a cafe, a restaurant, an art gallery, a wellness center, and we host weekly art and meditation workshops every single week to kind of build
Wow.
that awareness and that community. And I've been doing that for about 2.5 years, and then now we host like community nights, we do collaborations, we have a lot of things going on,
Yeah.
and then you know, and all about
That's
like mental health as well.
yeah.
So it's been pretty
You,
cool.
I mean, based on your Instagram, you like basically made it cool. Like it looks really like you walk when you look at your
Thank
Instagram, you look like you're walking into an art gallery. For real. Like I
Oh,
don't know who's doing it, but it's very well done.
thank
Is it
you.
you?
Um, it's pretty, I'm like crazy about the Instagram. So even if I have someone help me, I end up just like taking over it
It's
because
amazing.
I wanted it to be obviously an aesthetic, but I want it to be really non-intimidating. That's the whole point is that like anyone could come. We have people, our target audience is like people that aren't artists. Like if you are an artist, you're
Right.
100% welcome. We always have artists in the space, but like if you come to me and you're like, I haven't done art since I was 7, I'm like, that's perfect. You're exactly who I want in this
Yeah.
space. I think art is so intimidating to people. That's why I
Yes.
started it. Is like this outlet was so needed for you
Yeah.
to just shut off your mind and use your hands for a couple of hours. But people are so scared of art. They don't see it as a healing
Yeah.
process and a new wellness, activity. Instead of taking your weekly wellness class or your workout class, come and heal with us. Art does
Yeah.
just be a kid again. You used to make a drawing for your mom and be like, look what I did. And it's like a really bad drawing and everything's
Yeah.
outside the line. It's like the act of a hobby is so lost because we've turned a hobby into something that you need to perfect. But that's
Yes.
not what a hobby is. It's actually the opposite. A hobby is something that you actively don't need to be good at.
Yeah,
And
so good.
that's literally what we're trying to do is just allow you to shut off your mind and forget what that end goal is. And it's really beautiful to watch people come and maybe they're a little nervous at the beginning, maybe they're a little intimidated. Some people sign up, they have no idea what they signed up for, which is the funniest
That's
to
so
me.
cute.
And then at the end, they're like, wow, this was really relaxing. This was really
Yeah.
calm. I was able to express a single emotion. And we really emphasize think of any emotion and release that without judgment. Because I think
Wow.
that I go back to what I said at the beginning is like we really put a lot of judgment around certain emotions. And I think it's
Yeah.
something that we're taught. And if
Mm-hmm.
we unlearn those things, I think that we could do a lot of healing.
So beautiful. Something that popped in my head while you were talking is like, and I could be wrong about this, but my feeling is the people who are the most scared to do art are the ones that need it the most. Like if you're such a like me, I'll take myself as an example. I used to do art as a kid, and now I'm that person that you just painted the picture of. How can I do something if I'm not going to be good at it minute one into doing it? And I'm probably
Yeah.
the one that can use it the most because I need to be able to relax like that, you know?
100%. I mean, that's why I started doing it. I'm a perfectionist. I am an
Yeah.
artist. So I think that everything I create needs to be perfect, right? So I would also be great for really this is great for everyone. It's great for
Yeah.
any age. It's great for any audience because I I used to be and I think that sometimes I still am under the belief that in order for anything to get done, A plus B needs to equal C. So everything
Mm,
needs to fall into place. And that's a really bad way to go through life because then you'll never
interesting.
get anything done. And it goes into the same category as like, I can't start a business because I don't have this,
Right.
this. It's making every excuse under the sun until you do
Right.
anything. And you just need to let things go. Not
Yeah.
everything needs to be perfect. And when you're starting a business or you're running a business, you learn that like nothing is ever perfect. So you kind of have to just go with the chaos. And I think
Yeah.
that by doing something like mindful art or meditating or journaling or doing any of the practices that we do in our workshops, it really teaches you to just let go.
Yeah. It's basically what we were saying about getting rid of the black and white thinking. It's almost the same concept like we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Let's delve into a little bit your mental health journey and like that part of it. I know you dealt
Yeah.
with burnout based on, what we talked about and also a lot of your LinkedIn posts, which I appreciate you sharing. When did you notice that kind of like take over a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, do you want me to start with my mental health journey or go into like founder
Whatever.
mental health? Yeah.
Let's do from the like start from the beginning, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, I think I always struggled but didn't realize. I think as
Yeah.
a kid we're like so not self-aware, and again, I always put up this really strong front because I didn't want to be like that person,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be that person that like, oh, I went through something but no one could tell because I thought that was really cool, and I sometimes still do. I think it is cool to be that person that has a smile on their face and no one could tell that you went through something, because you don't
Yeah.
have to be a victim in life. You could still live life to the fullest. But I think that, I always had times where I was going through highs and going through lows, which that's life. It ebbs and flows, but like the lows could be really
Right.
bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think in my mid 20s, I went through some struggles where I, lost some people, and I was struggling where I felt really lost in life, and I did hit a low. And the normal practices of healing, where that may look like therapy or things like that, wasn't helping
Mm,
enough. So I turned to other outlets like journaling, like
mm.
meditation, and this is where I added those into my life. And it really helped me. And, I
Wow.
always practiced art, and I realized that these are really great forms of healing. And at that point, it wasn't like, oh, I need to give these to other people. It just really helped me, and it really helped me grow and be more present as someone who struggles with anxiety and being overwhelmed
Yeah.
and has spiraling thoughts at times. And it was then that I realized, like, wow, I was meant to go through that, because
Mm.
6 months later, I thought of this concept. So
Wow.
it made me realize, like, everything happens for a
Yeah.
reason, because if I didn't go through that and I didn't add these into my life, I wouldn't have thought of, wow, this is really needed for other people. And it really
Yeah.
is like me in something.
That's
Like, it is
beautiful.
everything that I've gone through. It's like the soul of who I am. So
Wow.
that's kind of like the struggle and what caused me to build it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say, going into building it, if
Yeah.
you kind of speak to like any founder, being a founder isn't easy. And I think that I jumped headfirst into it, and I didn't like prepare myself or know that. And as someone who already struggles with mental health, being a founder is extremely hard and challenging,
Yeah.
especially if you're like really passionate about it. I didn't really take time for myself at all. And facing founder burnout is like extremely common. And I made this like my entire life. So
Yeah.
it was bound to happen.
Yeah.
And I I don't think I realized it was happening, but it just became kind of ironic because I built this to help other people and I
Yeah.
loved it. And then I started to realize that my mental health was deteriorating in the
Mm-hmm.
process, which kind of made no sense. It's like I did this because I loved it, and now it's like destroying me in the process. Um,
I think
eh,
it's more common than we talk about, like it's the
yeah,
irony of life. You love something so much that it takes over your entire life and there's zero room to love anything else for yourself. I think we don't talk about it enough, but I think it's more common than not.
yeah,
If you're really giving it your all.
yeah. And I would speak to founders. This was like my first year. And whether they were 30 years in or 2 years in, I would get the same feedback. And while it was very validating, it wasn't helpful, which is
Right.
like two different things.
Yes,
And they
yes,
would
good
say
to say.
like, the same thing. They would say like, oh, don't worry, I still feel like a failure
Mm-hmm.
all the time, because that's what it is, kind of. You
Mm-hmm.
have really big moments. Everyone will tell you like the highs are really high and the lows are really low,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand that. Like, why is that the thing as a
Mm-hmm.
founder? Why are the highs really high and the lows are really low? No one does anything about it.
Yeah.
And you constantly feel like a failure. You get
Yeah.
mass amounts of rejection, and you go through every single emotion, or you can at least, in like a 48-hour span,
Yeah.
which is not healthy. It
Yeah.
allows you to process things really fast, but feeling every emotion under the sun is really scary.
It's
It's
like
like
an
you could have
overload, right?
it's an
You
overload of emotion. You could feel everything. You could go through a major high a day earlier, and then you could get like a really bad email the next day, and you could be in a major low. And the shift in
yeah.
those emotions, it's not great.
Yeah.
And
To say the least.
It's not great. It's emotion overload.
Yeah.
And no one really prepares you for that. And then I could
Right.
speak to a founder, it's 30 years in, and they'll say, like, oh, I still feel like a failure every day and every other day. And while that's really validating and it helped me for like a day, I realized I didn't want to feel like that in 30 years from now. And I realized no one was doing anything about this. While there's all these networking events, there's all these Q&As, there's no like outlet for founders to discuss mental health. No one's advocating for founder burnout. No one's advocating for founder mental health. I'm sure they are, but not on like a large scale
Right.
capacity, at least where I could find, unless you're like maybe raising a series A or
Right.
like you have to
Yeah.
be in these niche founder groups. And so that's why I created my female founder series, because
Yeah.
I really, like I'm doing with After Hours Club, I wanted to create an outlet for founders to just decompress and de-stress, where it's not only about networking, it's not only about, going to a panel and
Yeah.
it being informative, where it's just allowing us to give back time for ourselves, because I realized that's what I was lacking. It's really
Mm.
just making sure you're taking time for yourself. So that's why I created Women Who Lead. That's why I realized, wow, I need to take a
Yeah.
beat and check in on my mental health. And I'm sure many other women who are
Yeah.
building feel this way.
Yeah. So let's talk about you personally so others can learn if they're not, joining your events and programs. Like, what boundaries or practices do you implement now to avoid burnout again? And like what can other people implement in their lives?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I had to take a look at myself and ask, because I made my outlets my job,
Business.
I had to change that.
Interesting.
Um, I still meditate and journal every day, which helps me. I try to have slow mornings
Hmm.
to kind of break up the day. I try to work out every single day, or like at least 3 times a week, because that really helps me.
Yeah.
It or like going outside in this cold, it's hard, but just going outside, going for a walk, I find that if I'm having like spiraling thoughts, or I wake up and feel very overwhelmed with everything I have to get done in the day, just taking a walk,
Yeah.
very, very helpful. Um, Literally any form of movement is very, very
Breaks you out of
helpful.
that cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, because then I'll just sit in a chair and disassociate and
Right.
for an hour.
Right.
Um, Doing something just for me, which sometimes is hard to separate because I'm doing a lot of things by myself,
Right.
but doing something just for you, even if it's like going to a class or going to the sauna, or something that you love, going out with a friend, taking
Yeah.
time to see the people you love, which I think people forget to do. So these
Yeah.
are like small things. I think setting boundaries is important, and not being hard on myself, because I'm
Mm.
extremely hard on myself and always
Yeah.
have been. So I try to just be kinder to myself, which I think has been
Yeah.
very helpful.
You said small things, but I think it's like the small things that are the big things. Like it really doesn't take more than for me, like a 20-minute workout changes my entire day. I'm sure, when you host these events for women who lead and female founders, you learn about them. You're also one of them. So, what pressures do you think are rarely talked about? And I want to specifically focus on female founders or women in business.
Well, I don't know about pressures. I think women have a hard time. I think some people just don't take us seriously. Like I know I
Mm.
struggle with that. Um, I know raising money is a big one for
Yeah.
women. I always ask the question for signing up, and that is a big one that women have struggle with,
Oh,
is like
oh,
raising money, getting their brand off the floor, is like getting their brand off the ground, is raising money, or trying to
yeah,
figure that out in general, or like bootstrapping.
yeah.
I think is really struggle. And the number one is loneliness.
Oh,
And I don't know if this is gender specific, but being a founder is really lonely. And I don't mean that you are actually lonely. Like you could be so fine on your own and you could be really
mm,
happy and fulfilled in what you're doing. It's a very lonely journey that no one else understands. So being in a room full of
right.
founders and discussing what you are struggling with is really helpful, because
Yeah,
everyone in the room will relate to you.
yeah,
Whereas if your friends are doing other things, which is amazing, I surround myself with like very strong, amazing women, but most of them are not founders.
Yeah.
And I think we have a hard time when I'm going through something understanding it. Whereas I put on these activations and these sanctuaries for founders, and I think it's like a safe space because everyone understands what I mean when I say lonely. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
you could have an insane support system and you could have a family, a husband, friends that love you, but you could still feel really
Right.
lonely. It's very different. I think having
Yeah.
a co-founder could be helpful. um, that's also something people struggle with, finding a co-founder.
Right.
Um, but I think that's the number one thing is
Yeah.
loneliness.
That makes
Loneliness
so
when you
much
start.
sense. Yeah. The fact that you created this for founders, there's so many, like you were saying, networking events or whatever, where you could talk about, oh, this is what I go through as a founder, but you created a safe space where maybe somebody that would never admit that they need time from their self for themselves now can show up knowing that the woman next to them needs the same thing, and it's no longer something. Going back to the beginning of the conversation, it's no longer a weak emotion to need that hour for yourself. And I think that's the unique thing that you created, is creating, you took like spaces for founders, and then you really brought it down to making a safe space for founders to feel like they don't have to always have this face on of like, I got this, you know?
Yeah, because I think especially as a woman, we have to kind of put on
Yeah.
that face that like we can't show weakness. And that's what's cool about these events is we try to have like a sharing portion at some point.
Mm.
Our last one, we had a bit of a sharing portion before we started movement. And I think one of the women shared like she actually is in middle of taking like a bit of a mental health break, which was
Mm.
why she was able to join because it was
Oh.
midday. And that was really beautiful for me. Like I find in a room full of women, people are really able to get vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's always beautiful for me when people really feel the need to share what they're going through. Um, because sometimes I don't even realize like I might be going through the same thing,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
it's really cool, and it allows me to realize like wow, this is really needed. Sometimes when you're building something, you're so busy with the boring details of like the logistics and getting everything together that you don't realize what you've actually put together. And
Yeah.
like you said, like building safe spaces is exactly, what I'm trying to
Yeah.
do in whatever capacity that is.
Yeah. So, we're talking about being more vulnerable. Let's talk about you. You were saying in a recent post that like people and friends were encouraging you to be more front facing and sharing more about yourself, but you were initially a lot more resistant to it.
Mhm.
I relate to that a lot. So I just wanted to pick your brain. What were you resistant to, and then what made you decide that you're going to start being a little bit more open?
Listen, I'm still not like obsessed with the idea.
But you're doing it
I
anyway.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I just don't think I'm like meant to be a front-facing person. I don't see myself as like an influencer, but I do think it is a great way to connect. I've started doing it. I've met so many people through it. Every time I do it though, I'm like, this is so cringe.
I
It's
think
hard. It's
everyone
hard to
feels that
talk
way.
to a
Yeah.
camera, right?
Yeah.
But I do think it's amazing to meet people that way. I've had so many
Yeah.
people reach out to me. I think the one blocker was fear, right?
What
It's
we were
it's
talking
fear.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fear. Why am I not doing it? And everyone
Yeah.
says this. Everyone was telling me for 2 years,
Yeah.
you need to put yourself in front of the camera. It's the only way to build relatability. It's the only way people would connect
Yeah.
to your brand. People still tell me that, and I refuse to do it. And
But for you, you are your brand, which is why it makes so much. For some people, it's like they have no connection to the business they created. Their business is a standalone thing. You literally like 20 minutes ago were saying I am my brand, right? Everything about me. So like,
yeah,
who who is that? So I
yeah,
totally understand the people who were like
yeah.
basically pushing you to do that.
And I'm like barely on the Instagram and I'm like, it's great. No one knows who I am, but it's like, it doesn't really make sense.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
really barely shared my story. I say like, oh, I started this out of my own mental health journey, but I really am not very
Yeah.
front facing. And
Yeah.
that's like my biggest feedback is that I need to be
Wow.
more front facing.
Since you've started, have you noticed a shift in how people relate to you, or is it still like like early on where it's like you're building on that?
I think it's early on, but I will say that at any point where I have been more vulnerable, even at a workshop, for the last 2 years, if I've spoken to people at workshops or anything, those are the people that come back.
Always.
Those are my community members. So
That's your
I
A
know,
A plus B equals C. That's
no,
your
I know it's right.
yeah.
And I've also written about this on LinkedIn where it's like whatever you're not doing is what's holding you back in your business, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you are choosing, it's like whatever, what is there's a saying, it's like whatever you're not changing, you're choosing or something. It's like whatever
Uh
you're avoiding
mhm.
is what's keeping you from growing in your
Right.
business. I'm like, I know that that's what was causing me to not grow,
Yeah.
but I couldn't do it
Yeah. Yeah.
at
But I
that
mean,
time.
I'm glad that I caught you in a time where you're like starting to open that world a little bit more. Um I want to end off by asking you, what has surprised you the most about yourself in the past year?
Oh my, so much. Not even the last year, last 2.5 years, I've completely changed as a person.
Mm,
If you would have told me 3 years ago that I would be who I am today, I wouldn't have believed you.
wow.
I would have laughed in your face. I didn't know how to public speak. I don't think I was a well-spoken person at all. I wasn't confident in who I
Mm,
am. I don't think I was passionate about anything because I hadn't found what I
yeah.
was passionate about. And to see who I have become and grown into,
Wow.
is really cool. And I think that when you care really deeply about something, it allows you to really push through anything. And it has taught me so much about people. I've been able to meet so many cool people. I have learned so much about communication.
Wow.
That's something I
Yeah.
used to really struggle with as well. And people who meet me now, I think don't understand what I used to
Yeah.
be like. And it's really crazy.
Yeah.
Like my work ethic, everything has completely shifted
Wow.
and it's really, really cool.
I think it's so cool how 2 years can change like an entire life, but also to your point about when you find something that you're passionate, that changes your entire life. Because you were saying before, you're like, you never even thought about most people when I ask that question, they had an answer, and you're like, hello, I that never even crossed my mind, right? And then I mean, I didn't know you back then, but listening to your story, you see how much finding something you're passionate and like having a purpose to wake up in the morning really shifts everything. And
Yeah.
right, so I think that's amazing, and it's so beautiful how your life led you to where you are today, and I'm sure you're gonna keep doing amazing things. But I want to take the time to thank you for obviously coming on here, but also creating these spaces. I am a founder myself, so I know what you're talking about. And I think it's so important for founders, for people to have authentic. I'm gonna say authentic because there's a lot of like inauthentic groups where you can, they say they're for mental health, but then nobody actually talks about the things that you really want to talk about. So thank you for creating those spaces.
Of course. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.